Hey guys, today let us discuss Logic Apps. So we will discuss what it is and when we should use it. Then we will discuss advantages of Logic App. Then we will quickly discuss the basic components in Logic App, and these are trigger, actions, workflow and connector. And guys, finally, let's say for a particular scenario, if we have alternate solution available. For example, we can write custom code with our Azure functions. So for such scenario, should we use Logic App or we should go with that alternate solution? So that also we will discuss. And now let us discuss what is Logic App and when we should use it. So guys, Logic App, it is a cloud service which is used to connect different services together and then to create automated workflow involving these services. So I know guys, this definition and this explanation might be confusing. So let's try to understand it with an example. So guys, let's assume we have a requirement where when a new blob is uploaded, we want to read the blob name and URL for this uploaded blob, and then we want to save this blob name and that blob URL in SQLDB, and finally we want to send an email to the user telling him that the new blob has been uploaded and this is the URL or path for that blob. So here if you see, our requirement involves multiple services. So the first one is this blob service, then this SQL service, and then this email service, right? And then we are performing certain actions involving these services, right? And these actions in sequence, they form our workflow, right? So if you go back to our definition, you see it says it connects different services together. So again we have blob service, SQL service and email service, and then we create automated workflow involving these services. Okay guys, so we have understood Logic App at very high level, and now let's quickly try to understand the advantages of Logic App. So guys, the first one is serverless architecture. So again guys, you just worry about your workflow and the sequence of actions which you want to perform. So we don't need to worry about the infrastructure needed to run this workflow. Then the second is, as on today, Logic App, it supports 1000 plus built-in connectors. So guys, what is this connector? So again, as we discussed, from our Logic App, we can connect with blob service, SQL service, email service, right? So to connect to these services, we use something called connector. So for example, apart from blob, SQL or email which we just discussed, we can use other built-in connectors like Twitter, Salesforce, Cosmos DB, Service Bus and more. Then the third one is, to create this Logic App workflow, we can simply use this drag and drop feature. So it is really cool and very easy to use. Logic App provides great monitoring and logging feature. And I guess this is self-explanatory, and of course we will see it in detail in our upcoming videos. And now let's try to understand the basic components in Logic App, that is trigger, actions, workflow and connector. So again guys, let's say we have this requirement that when a new blob is uploaded, we should read the blob name and blob URL. We should save that blob name and blob URL in SQLDB, and then we should send the details to the user over email, right? So guys, again this is our overall workflow, right? So there has to be some trigger or there has to be some starting point based on which this workflow will start execution, right? And again, as you can guess here, when a new blob is uploaded, that is going to be our trigger. Now guys, after this trigger is fired, that is when this blob is uploaded, we are going to perform two actions. First, to write these details in SQLDB, and then second is send email. So these are our actions. Then this trigger and then this sequence of actions, they together create our workflow. So guys, this big box is our workflow. And finally, what is the connector? See again guys, our Logic App, it is connecting to this blob service or to this SQL service or to this email service. So obviously from our Logic App, to connect to these services, we need something called connector or connection. And now finally let's discuss if we have an alternate solution available, should we use Logic App or we should use that alternate solution, and let's try to understand the difference. So guys, first obviously if we want to use automated workflow which involves multiple services, we should go ahead with Logic Apps. Then second, let's say if you don't want to write any code, or let's say you want to write low code, and let's say there are non-developers as well who will be working with our Logic App workflow. So obviously in such case we can use Logic App. Then let's say we want quick development. So obviously guys, writing our own custom code, it might take more time. So for quick development, we can go ahead with Logic App. Okay guys, this is all about when we should use Logic App, but when we should not use. So as a thumb rule, when we have complex business logic or when we have complex data processing, instead of using Logic App, it's better we write our own custom code. Now guys, let's say we want to connect to a service from Logic App for which built-in connector is not available. So in such case, we can create something called custom connector. But guys, for most of the scenarios, it is always good to go ahead with our custom code in Azure Functions instead of creating custom connector and using it in Logic App. So that's it guys for this video. Thanks for listening.